Compared to other dragons, this particular one is a rigid arbiter of law, wishing that the world around its lair is tidy, peaceful, and that the people are working together. And even through its own good-aligned nature, anything that dares stand between it and the law is an enemy that must be dealt with severely and swiftly. So without further introduction, today's video is TPK or Bust, Adult Bronze Dragon. The Bronze Dragon has an interesting philosophy that I'll need to cover in greater detail in the flavor and skills segment, but for the moment, I'll discuss its pure offensive capabilities per usual. First and foremost is the Metallic Dragon's special ability to have 2 separate breath attacks. My personal opinion is that this gives the dragon many points inside of combat in multiple categories. And the Bronze Dragon takes this to another level with its special Repulsion Breath. On a solid DC 19 strength saving throw, the Bronze Dragon can easily blast back enemies 60 feet away from itself. On first glance, I wondered if this was even good. Pushing targets away with no damage is a bit strange, but upon pondering it further, and on the use of the breath attack itself inside and outside of combat, I found myself thinking about its lair. It nests in areas that have easy access to water. If it could blow half of the party into deep water, and then immediately dive in the water itself for better movement and then further separation of the party, it could easily follow up on floundering spellcasters or drowning fighters in their heavy plate mail. In addition to this, being able to push targets away from itself to prevent opportunity attacks is alright. I'm not sure if it's worth it to trade its most powerful damage feature for the prevention of a few points of HP. Speaking of its other breath attack, identical to the Blue Dragon, the Bronze Dragon can burst out a whopping 66 points of lightning in a line up to 90 feet long. Between the damage type, and its absurd range, this breath attack is one of the most powerful breath attacks any dragon has as an opener, or even just as a final blow against any person who dares hit 60 HP or less. It does have that classic claw-claw-bite combo. With an average of 46 damage if you land all 3, you're looking at some crazy reliable damage, even without the dice for its breath attack type. Like other non-metallic dragons get, the Bronze Dragon puts up some great numbers that compete nonetheless. For its legendary actions, it's more of the same. For one legendary action, it's the classy Detect. It has a solid plus 12 perception. It's nothing to shake a stick at, nor something to merit really. Its 2 legendary actions is the reliable tail attack, dealing an average of 16 damage at 15 feet range. Once again, the tail attack is a super great way for chip damage while dancing just out of range of spears and longswords. For 3 legendary actions is my favorite once again, the wing attack, dealing an average of 14 damage and forcing targets around itself to make a DC 20 dex save, or go prone before it flies away with half of its movement speed. Again, it's always a wonderful legendary action to spam all the time if possible. Putting together some strategy here on my own research, this dragon can easily blow away, knock down, and otherwise inhibit movement in many forms. I do wish that it had a better way to pounce upon the targets, with more reliable range, maybe spells or other ranged attacks, because waiting on that breath attack after using it is all about luck, and it may not have the time to do that. A layer action that can capitalize on the distance, which I'll cover later, would also be great, but as we find out later, it's not actually that great. This isn't a complaint to its total offensive score, as the Bronze Dragon is impressive. Between some amazing burst damage from the breath attack, reliable damage in melee, and the strategy of knocking and blowing players away, I think the Bronze Dragon gets a fashionable score of 7.2 out of 10. Now, I do have to say a lot of the score came from the Repulsion Breath and its wing attack in combination. Traditionally, I don't give points to dragons who share effects like wing attacks or tail attacks, but in this instance I needed to. It's able to easily knock players prone with the wing attack, and then blow them away 60 feet with the breath attack, forcing them to spend half their movement to cleanse prone, and now they're still 60 feet away, with half of their movement. This kind of movement control allows the dragon to easily line up combat in a way at once every single round, flying and swimming to the most advantageous position without worry of counterplay or opportunity attack. This further compounds when you add water into the mix. Do the players land prone in the water? Do they need to swim to the shore before they can even continue the fight? Even worse, does the dragon grapple the people that are in the water, bring them below the waves 40 feet each turn, and blow the rest of the party back up to the surface of the water every time they try to get close to save their friend? It's like the world's worst game of keep away. And as much as I'd like to keep talking about how powerful the disallowing of movement inside of combat can be, I think moving right along to skills is a better use of time, and talking more about its preferred layer is more interesting. Moving right along to skills, we'll talk about the layer, where it nests in place where tides roll into the shore of its coastal caves. Its first layer action is honestly just alright, practically just casting the Fog Cloud spell. The only real benefit of Fog Cloud is the true lack of concentration the dragon needs to do this every other round. Look, I'm not saying that Obscuring Vision isn't powerful, but, if it needs to do that, keeping the cave pitch black when it's under attack, or dragging the fight into murky water would just be better overall, instead of having to use a very powerful effect to cast fog. The next layer action allows the dragon to make a thunderclap within 120 feet of it, within a 20-foot radius on a point that it can see, deafening creatures who fail a DC 15 con save. And this one is just disappointing. I don't see the reason it has this ability, flavor-wise, nor do I see this being very effective with a DC 15 on Constitution, a stat most players want to keep relatively high. Look, the small chip damage and status condition is nice if it lands, but being realistic in combat, this is kind of garbage. Once again, I feel as though its layer actions suffer as a metallic dragon, just because it has that second powerful breath attack. On the flip side, its stats are very good overall, sitting nicely at 25 strength, 10 dexterity, 23 constitution, 16 intelligence, 15 wisdom, and a balmy 19 charisma. I'll admit the lack of dexterity once again in a dragon makes me worry about its ability to avoid strong burst damage like Fireball, or avoid snare-like abilities to keep it from flying. But honestly, its great intelligence and its powerful strength make up for that flawed stat in combat. Its lack of a spell list is pretty normal for most dragons, but I would like to see dragons with a few innate spells on the sheet, rather than just implying that they have them inside of their regional effects or layer actions. Also, on that topic, I'm not covering the regional effects of any of the dragons in much detail, as some of the regional effects bring in outside combat that skew ratings. The blue dragon, for example, makes dust devils animated and attacks any trespasser as they get closer and closer to the lair, while black dragons have some sort of mystical control over all the lizards in a swamp. These kind of effects are kind of strange, and they skew the outside perspective when it comes to rating these dragons, so I tend to avoid them, because other dragons, like the bronze dragon, gets music in its cave and shiny, colorful coral in an area. I mean, as a flavor thing, that's amazing, that's super cool, I love the idea of it having music in its cave and enjoying the peace and quiet of its own home, but it doesn't really help much in the ratings here, as much as I want to include them. Its movement is 40 walking speed, and the traditional 80 flying speed. The bronze dragon, however, gets a 40-foot swim speed, which, again, alternate movement conditions are traditional for dragons, but specifically here, water-based combat is a powerful tool against parties, and the bronze dragon really uses this to its advantage. I have seen many jokes and threats from game masters about dragging parties into the waves, and honestly, I can't blame them. Swimming is difficult enough when you're not fighting an angry, giant, lightning-breathing lizard. So, With the dark vision of 120 feet like other dragons, and a blind sight of 60 foot, it's looking average as well with its draconic eyes. Honestly, reading through the effects and the skills, and trying to put together a power level for its overall strength, I would have to say that rating the Bronze Dragon a 4.1 out of 10 on skills is actually more than fair. Look, those layer actions really stink. And its other skills it brings to the table really just don't do anything special or different than any other dragon. There could be an argument made for the Fog Cloud spell, allowing the dragon to use its +5 stealth a bit better, giving it sort of a setup or a runaway. But honestly, I really just don't see this effect working more than once, or if it even works the first time. Its high stats are fine enough, in fact, maybe a little better distribution than other dragons for sure. But honestly, they only give a little buffer between the lack of the layer effects. On a different note, if I didn't believe that its swim speed was actually more powerful than it lets on, I would actually give the Bronze Dragon a lower score in this category. But as a fully aquatic dragon able to take advantage of all of its movement types in any single place, I think it deserves the 4.1 and not any more or any less. Next up is the defensive category, which I'm pretty excited to talk about. First of all, its HP is a bit more than other dragons of equal CR, sitting at a very solid 212 average HP, and the traditional 19 AC. This dragon can easily brawl and face tank a little better than other dragons. With its immunity to lightning, I don't see it being like ultra relevant in a combat, but just the same, it checks off a few powerful burst damage spells like Lightning Bolt from things it needs to worry about. The Bronze Dragon needs far more context to really understand its battle strategy, and to give it full justice, I'll wrap up the defensive category quickly. Its saving throw bonuses, like most dragons, fall under Dexterity, Constitution, Wisdom, and Charisma scores, all of which are pretty solid, but not having a great Dexterity overall, including its Dex save, is kind of a bad thing, like I talked about earlier, but it's not the end of the world. Like I discussed in detail earlier, its ability to knock players away and keep the movement on the table to the way it wants shifts the combat in favor of the dragon, allowing it to think about and assess each threat individually and very carefully, judging their movements and tactics and countering them with its own plans. I like this dragon's ability to control the total battle with simple movement shenanigans. And with it being able to shift the battle to sky, water, or land, it's got total control of most of the elements in the combat. Looking at this from a tactical perspective, and thinking about the damage it's taking, all of that damage is going to be calculated, it's going to be known, it's going to be assessing that damage every turn. It's going to get a defensive score of 8.9 out of 10. Outright, there isn't anything on the sheet to prove it deserves this kind of score. Yes, it's a little tankier. Yes, it does have a swim speed, but so do other dragons. But the key difference here is the synergy between its attacks, its intelligence, and its stats. It has everything going for it to keep the combat moving to a pace it wants. This dragon literally can decide when players skip turns, which players attack, and which turns to shift the environment from air to water or land. All of these factors just keep adding up to me and making the dragon more and more able to take less damage overall. Yes, the dexterity being lower is bad, and outside of powerful bonuses to important saves, it can't actually shrug off magical effects or debuffs. But with its 16 intelligence, it can easily figure a plan to deal with pesky spellcasters and debuffs very quickly. Lastly is the flavor of the Bronze Dragon, and boy, howdy do I have a bit to talk about. So strap in and grab a drink for this one. It's gonna be a doozy. So firstly, the alignment of this dragon might be a bit misleading. It's marked as lawful good, and these dragons are good, and they are lawful, but not in equal parts, as unlike other metallic dragons, they relate more to red dragons than they actually do their brothers and sisters. They have voracious appetites, they have an immense desire for gold, even if they refuse to indulge on that. And they take massive pride in their sense of justice. This justice is both their best and worst trait for the mortals they look to help. They hate traveling in their dragon forms, using the changed shape feature they have to travel as birds, dolphins, and mortals. They spy on and assess the world around them for evil intent and malice, jumping at every opportunity to punish the wicked with their powers, even if they never reveal that they're a bronze dragon at all. That's where this kind of rating system gets a little confusing for the bronze dragon, because they all have these super powerful skills and abilities for combat like I talked about, but until they are swayed into true bloody combat, they're really just softies. They don't want to deal damage to their opponents, rather opting to strand them somewhere, imprison them, or banish or punish them without harm. Their true fangs only bear forth on people who argue against their word, to those who break the rules and worship evil. They are stubborn, thinking their word and sense of justice is the correct way of things, and that even as a good aligned creature, they tend to grow more arrogant and zealous in age, sometimes taking their justice to nearby villages and towns, and without even having to reveal their dragon form, they may bring down the hammer of wrath on those who break the law in any form, regardless of moral and regardless of argument. The law is the law. This brings a strange perspective to this video, as thinking about it, it may not even use its full power on anything that does not pose a massive threat to its people or its own life. It's more like a judge, more of a spectator, dishing out just punishments to only those it sees worthy of. But on the weekends and special events, it's also the jury and the executioner. It may decide that a specific village is evil, and it wipes it off the map for the greater good. For flavor, this creature is packing some strange and interesting information, and I want to do it, no pun intended, justice when deciding on its final score. I want to help other game masters get a better grasp of how to use this dragon in their own games, more than anything. Firstly, I see this being a perfect, and I do mean literally perfect, dragon to punish the murder hobos of your realms. They actively disguise themselves as beggars and animals, spying on the populace for evil intent. And murder, even justified murder, is still just that, murder. And the dragon may reveal some or all of its power to stop the party. And when the dragon realizes that maybe the party is too strong to fight in the shape of whatever form it's taking that it loves so much, it will reveal its true form to them. This dragon is intelligent and very quick to jump into the fray when those who need its power are in danger. It is not afraid to get hurt or to enact justice. I don't see it being cowardly nor full of hatred for those it can't fight right away. Lastly, I want to talk a bit more about the dragon's shapeshifting, and why using it so often, even more so than other dragons, is such a powerful tool for this kind of dragon specifically. When scouting for those who are evil, staying low and quiet are necessary to catching those who are guilty red-handed, and it being able to work with those who align with its goals, or even oppress those with a tyrannical thumb who don't agree with its own justice system, is such an important part of understanding why I'm going to rate this dragon the way I am. So, in conclusion, for flavor, I'm going to rate the dragon a 6 out of 10. There are a bunch of reasons, but I'll boil them down very quickly. First, for how interesting the dragon is, it's a 10 out of 10. Easy. It's so fun, it's powerful, I love the design, and reading about it made me super excited to write this TPK or bust. But, second, for its battle tactics, I need to burn off some of the hype I threw into the offensive-defensive categories. Its battle tactics betray its feelings for combat. Almost like Kid Gohan before doing Super Saiyan 2 versus Cell, it would rather find some alternate way to fight without violence. But if you hit the right buttons and anger it or break its sense of law in front of it, the powerhouse of a dragon that I was talking about will reveal itself in storm. Third is the use of its shapeshifting, taking a very, very active role in the communities around it, but refusing to show its dragon form to any but the most dangerous of opponents or the most deserving of friends. I like this and I hate this at the same time. On one hand, it's a powerful tool for jumping on evildoers and catching them when they're flat-footed. But because of that, on the same hand, they also use it to enact justice on those who don't really deserve it either, punishing lawbreakers no matter their reason or morality. I can easily see these dragons being a villain by accident, and also being the hero to save the day against a greater vile evil. They are very flexible, and I want to give them a higher score, but it's important to understand that they are interesting to me, yes, but they have many flaws and features that require them to jump hurdles to use their abilities to the maximum. Whew, okay. With that absolute block of text out of the way, we can get to the finale of this video. The total combined score of the Bronze Dragon lands it on a final score of 6.5 out of 10. You know, for a flavorful fight, I think this is a perfect score for this dragon. Its personality is so unique compared to what I knew before I really read into it, and its combat potential is very, very high. This could easily TPK a party that is not expecting such intense tactical combat. Its breath attack and outright damage makes it as dangerous as other dragons, but more so, that movement control makes this dragon a powerful enemy. Even more so when the party argues or tries to debate the law and morality with such an arrogant creature, and making it more cross in the process. This one did take a while to make, but I enjoyed learning about the Bronze Dragon a lot. I was pleasantly surprised to really start understanding this dragon's intent and power more in depth, and I can't wait to run one of these in my own games. Thanks for watching. If you like this kind of video, make sure to subscribe and check out my other content that's similar, like my other TPK or Bust videos, or even my how-to series, where I break down monsters that aren't dragons more mechanically. I'll see you next time.
If streaming games, playing D&D, talking about all things nerdy, and even embarrassing myself on live is good enough for you, well, maybe check out my content. And thanks for watching this one. I really appreciate it. If you need to find me, go ahead and look at my links down below, and maybe check out some of my other videos on TikTok and Twitch.